to the Nisei Veterans Memorial Center's TaKe Leadership Talk this Tuesday afternoon. Good afternoon. My name is Deidre Teagarden. I'm the Executive Director here at the Nisei Veterans Memorial Center, where our mission is to inspire people to find the hero within themselves through the legacy of our Nisei veterans. You can find out more information on the center at our website at nvmc.org. We are thrilled that all of you are here with us today for this talk with Grant Chun, the Executive Director at Hale Mahaolu, and I will get to his introduction in just a bit. We wanted to thank all of you for being a part of our TaKe series. TaKe, of course, means bamboo in Japanese, known for its strength and resilience and flexibility during difficult times, something we are all relating to, I know. And the series brings on leaders from across our state to talk about this new normal that we are all collectively facing and giving their insights and inspiration on how we can get through it as a community. So again, we thank you for being here. We want to let you know that we will be taking questions at the end of the discussion, so please feel free to send in your questions on that little question and answer box at the bottom left-hand side of your screen. We will get to as many as possible. And of course, we wouldn't be able to do any of the programs that we do if it weren't for our wonderful corporate sponsors. So just a quick mahalo to HealthSmart, Central Pacific Bank Foundation, VIP Food Service, Maui Health Systems, Pasha Hawaii, Maui Sons and Daughters of the Nisei Veterans, Service Rentals, Arazumi Brothers, Abbey Carpet of Maui, TJ's Warehouse, Mid-Pacific Pest Control, Maui Disposal, Purell Water Specialty Company, Sei Designs, Munekio Haraga, RT Tanaka Engineers, and the Maui News. We thank all of them. Now it gives me great pleasure to introduce our speaker today, Mr. Grant Chun. Grant Chun has served as the Executive Director of Hale Mahaolu since 2017. Prior to that, he served as Vice President of A&B Properties Incorporated and was the former Managing Director of the County of Maui. Active in the community, Chun has served on the Board of Directors for Akeki's Dream, Alexander and Baldwin Foundation, the Maui Chinese Cultural Society, Maui Economic Development Board, and Maui Economic Opportunity, as well as on the Executive Board of the Boy Scouts of America Maui County Council, and on the Regional Board of the Hawaii Health Systems Corporation, as well as on the Chancellor's Advisory Council for UH Maui College. He is a lifetime member of the Maui Young Business Roundtable. Chun earned a bachelor's degree in political science and public relations from the University of Southern California. He also holds a law degree from the University of California, Hastings College of Law. So please help me give a warm Maui virtual welcome to Mr. Grant Chun. Grant, how are you?
Well, thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
Oh, we're excited to have you here and can't wait to delve a little bit more into your background and everything that you're doing over there at Hale Mahaolu. But to kick it off, you know, we have a handful of people on this phone call, on the Zoom call from the mainland and Japan who might not know about Hale Mahaolu. So could you give us a little 101 on Hale Mahaolu and what you do?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Hale Mahaolu is a nonprofit business that was established here in our community on Maui in 1967. And its goal was essentially to construct a senior housing project, which was ultimately named Hale Mahaolu Akahi, which is situated to this day on the corner of Wakea and Hina Avenues in Kahului. The project leveraged a land donation from Alexander and Baldwin, seed money from the County of Maui, and federal monies from HUD to construct our first housing project, which was 111 units, and it was completed in 1970. So fast forward over the period of the last 50 years that have elapsed since then, Hale Mahaolu has grown its portfolio to a company that now has over 1,200 units on 16 different sites on the islands of Maui, Molokai, and Lanai. Most of our sites are targeted for senior citizens, but we also offer 4 of our properties to families as well. Our most recent projects are Hale Mahaolu Evalu in Pukalani, which opened in 2 phases in 2019 and 2020, and Catholic Charities Kahului Lani on Kane Street in Kahului, which we're managing and are in the process of filling right now. We also offer several programs that are very important to the work that we do in the community and go well beyond our housing sites. We have a meals program that is the primary provider for Meals on Wheels here in the county of Maui. So we do about 20,000 meals a month that are delivered to folks in their homes, not just at Hale Mahaolu, but throughout the community. We also offer a personal care program, which is a kupuna care contractor, as well as a personal care subsidy program. And in the past year, just as a for instance, we've done serviced about 15,000 hours in folks' homes over the past year. And finally, we have a housing counseling program, which works with folks who are in the throes of trying to achieve housing, whether it be rental housing or housing for purchase. We walk them through the process and help them with the financial hurdles that whole process entails. So we're always busy, always looking ahead, and always excited about the future for Maui.
Oh, thank you for that. And I love on your website where it says Hale Mahaolu, where aloha lives. And I think from the description of the services that you just gave, that couldn't be truer. So thank you for being that rock in the community. Okay, so now we know a little bit about Hale Mahaolu. I'd like to delve down into a little bit about your background, because you have a really interesting background. Your father was Chinese American, your mother was Japanese American. And, do you find that particular combination had any specific impact on your life or the choices that you made throughout your life?
Well, actually, increasingly now, being part Chinese and part Japanese is very common. But when I was growing up, it was not actually that common. And the assumption, because my last name is Chun, growing up here on Maui, is that I was the Chinese kid in school. So folks are still surprised to this day that I am actually half Japanese. And my roots on Maui really are the Japanese side of the family. So the sort of the head of our family was my grandfather, who was very, very involved in AJA organizations and his church, and really was actually quite the role model for me growing up. And so I really feel a great deal of, I was influenced to a great extent by sort of my mixed heritage, if you would call it that.
And you are a Maui High graduate, correct?
That is correct.
Excellent. But then you went to the mainland for university, graduating from USC. Looking back, do you have any specific experiences that kind of pop out to you that really fostered and shaped the career, a really interesting career that you've had, those career choices?
Well, growing up here on Maui, I always kind of gravitated, I don't know why, to sort of leadership positions. And they were always sort of made readily available to me for whatever reason. And so I was actually class president for 4 years at Maui High School, and those experiences, I think at a young age, kind of gave me a comfort level in terms of being decisive, being clear in my communications, and being not shy about asking people to do things in the nicest way possible. And I really have a lot of teachers, I think, to thank for kind of seeing some raw set of skills in me in my years growing up here on Maui, to kind of lead me in the direction that I've taken over the course of my career. Just fun fact, actually, one of my teachers, actually my student government advisor, Pat Tomita is actually one of my board members here at Hale Mahaolu. And sometimes it occurs to me that I just kind of cross my fingers, hoping that she sees some development in my meeting management skills since high school. But it's really been a journey for me, and I feel like the foundation for the work I've done and the career I've had was laid pretty early by the folks that I was fortunate enough to encounter growing up.
Yeah. Well, I have a feeling if Pat Tomita didn't think that you were good at what you were doing, she probably wouldn't be sitting on your board. But but talking about your career, you were with Carl Smith Ball for a while as an attorney. You were the managing director for the county of Maui under Mayor Apana. You were vice president of A&B Properties and now executive director of Hale Mahaolu. So I mean, really spanning every single block of the community. How has that been? I mean, are there a lot of similarities between those fields? Talk to us a little bit about that career, about your career and all the different things that you've tried and you've done so well and succeeded at.
Well, you're right. I've been one of those fortunate people to have just been given tremendous opportunities, and I've had really great, satisfying, fulfilling jobs over the course of the past years in my career. And each of the positions have had, huge opportunities and tremendous challenges. But I really, if I think back on like sort of the biggest learning curve for me, it was definitely when I served in county government as managing director. I came in with the administration of Mayor Kimo Apana, and when we took on this task, Mayor Apana and the finance director, Wesley Lowe, and myself as managing director, we were in our 30s. And we had a lot of ideas and a lot of energy, and we had a lot to learn as well. And particularly for me, what I reflect on and what I think maybe folks early in their career come to realize as they start sort of growing in the kinds of jobs they have and their skill sets is what that period really taught me was about change and how difficult it is and how change management is like a real thing. As you mentioned, Deidre, I'm a lawyer, and I came into that position after 12 years in a law firm. And honestly, in my experience, law firms are not big on managing change. It's the setting is very much one where, for instance, the senior partner might show up one morning and shoot an email out and say, basically, from now on, this is how such and such is going to be done. And that's just it. You accept it. You don't worry about it. You don't question it, and you move on. And it's actually literally how I came into the county with that mindset. And I realized quickly in that position that that's really not how most of the world operates. And change has to be really sort of cultivated and nurtured, and it's difficult, but it can be really transformative and wonderful for the people within and outside of the organization that goes through that in a good way. So yeah, I've had all kinds of experiences, but if I know you kind of gave me a little bit of heads up, so I had some time to think about the largest sort of challenge, and that really stands out for me. It was an education, taking on that role and learning how to communicate and understand where people are coming from in the face of change.
So you've had all these leadership roles, and of course they've been in very different sectors. But do you feel that there is a common thread? I mean, is leadership?
There's a common thread for sure. I think that the ability to communicate in a way that makes for a productive interaction is very important in leadership. You can really convey what you want to communicate by blurting things out and not worrying about how they're received. But is that a successful, productive way of interacting? Not always, right? And I think that's something that a person learns over time when put in situations of leadership or management, that really taking the energy to have a sense of your audience, kind of their worldview, their perspective, really can make all the difference in how you approach a message, how you share what you need to share, and how both sides can come out of that interaction with a feeling that it was a successful interaction, message received, but also message accepted,
Right. And you were talking about change earlier too. I mean, everything that the state and the county government is going through right now with COVID. I mean, there's just every day it's changing. So, as you look at what government is going through now, do you miss not being up there on the ninth floor, kind of being in the middle of everything, or are you glad to be where you are right now? And you have your own issues to worry about, but do you miss that kind of adrenaline rush that definitely comes with the ninth floor?
No, I really don't. I really admire the efforts that they're having to undertake, because clearly these are all matters of first review, really, for everyone involved, particularly in government. I mean, there's no playbook. Folks I know are doing the best they can, using the best judgment they can with the best information they have, but that information is evolving very quickly, sometimes daily. And the backdrop that our mayor and his team have to work against is really, really challenging. I just feel for them, but I also really give them a lot of credit for kind of rolling with the punches, making the best possible decisions they can based on the information they have, kind of regrouping when maybe decisions need to be rethought, and coordinating, of course, the intricacies of what is and is not their jurisdiction, kind of, receiving, seeking and receiving, approval from the governor when necessary. There's all of those different dynamics that they are juggling. And, hats off really to them for, doing what they've done. And I think key in terms of that initiative has been, the communication piece. As we all know, the mayor actually was my next door neighbor for 25 years. Okay, so I know he's a good communicator, and he's done well that way. I mean, he's very candid. He's very open. He'll share whatever information he has. I feel very transparently. And so I really feel like against the backdrop of what we're faced with, I give him credit for having handled the situation as he has, with the support of his team, of course.
Definitely difficult times. And the other thing that they have to handle is all the social media, which wasn't something that you and your team
Absolutely.
dealt with back in Mayor Apana's time. So that brings a whole another ball of wax.
Right.
Media.
Completely,
so,
yes.
Yeah. So, we often ask women, about work-life balance. How are you able to, to handle everything? And we just had a women's leadership panel last Friday, and we asked that question. And we thought, we should ask that of the men too, because you're a very, very engaged family man. But how were you able to balance all of that and still do well at your job and at home?
Thanks for asking that. I was actually pretty engaged dad when my children were growing up. I have two kids who hopefully are watching. Um, I have a son named Alex who is now a lawyer actually at my old law firm, at the Honolulu office of my old law firm, Carl Smith, and a daughter, Catherine, who is in her final year as a pharmacy student at UCSF. And actually through the years that they grew up, I feel like I probably sacrificed a lot of sleep because I was really pretty engaged. I mean, if I do say so myself, and I always tell them, you're welcome. You are welcome. Because I was, I was a Boy Scout leader for 12 years. I was the band booster president. I chaired both of their project graduations, and no offense to my wife, who's also on this call, I'm sure, but although she's the educator, I was really the one involved in their process for their, their college applications and their graduate professional school application. I mean, I got really involved. And so I just share all of that because I realize what a balancing act it is to have a job, have a career, try and make ends meet, and have a family. And so that's why I really kind of just fast forward to today. I really, really, really feel for the parents who are trying to navigate this time with their kids, particularly the younger kids, the elementary aged children who are doing the distance learning thing. And I understand from folks, on my own staff here, how really challenging that is. I can only imagine the teachers trying to, maintain order in a virtual classroom of 25 kindergartners. I mean, how do you even do that? And so, I really think about my experience and reflect fondly on it, of course, but also contextualize it in terms of how I can truly appreciate and kind of empathize with what parents are experiencing, right now as we speak.
Right. And because we're on that subject, a quick question just popped up, so I think I'll go ahead and ask it now. Um, how much how important is it though really to have that supportive spouse? And maybe now with COVID and everything, it's leveled that playing field because everybody really has to jump in and help. But what role does that supportive spouse play in your ability to be everything to everybody?
Oh, it's huge because if you don't have a supportive spouse, um, to my mind, there's really no way that you can, uh, or there's no way I guess should say, there's no way I could have um, been as engaged in the community as I was, spent as many hours at work as I did, even in terms of getting involved with the kids' activities, which didn't always involve being involved with your kid, right? Sometimes you're involved in the sort of the organization of their activities and the leadership that is necessary from a parental level, but you're not, basically you're not playing music with your kid, you're not, going camping with your kid every single time, and yet you're in charge, and it's time and it's an obligation. And if your spouse is not on board, sort of on the same sheet of music, if you want to call it that, I don't know how that even makes sense or works. So I was very fortunate, actually.
Good
Yeah.
answer.
Yeah.
And that was not from your wife. That question did not come from your wife.
Yeah.
But let's talk a little bit more about Hale Mahaolu and the deep Nisei connection that it has here. I was, when we talked earlier on, I had no idea that it had such the Nisei connection that it does. And I bet a lot of people on this call would like to hear about that.
Yeah, so Hale Mahaolu is, and the Nisei, really the Nisei veterans' legacy is one of the key elements that really defines not just our community, but also our organization, Hale Mahaolu, in so many ways. Because really the initiative that I spoke of at the beginning of this talk was the initiative of really Nisei, who were teachers and union members and members of the Catholic faith and from the United Church of Christ and the Honganji Buddhist temples, and even leadership from Hale Mahaolu, who banded together and said, hey, we need to do this because our community doesn't have this, right? And what really is remarkable to me is that, as you've alluded to in some of our conversations, Deidre, these weren't people with a lot of money, but they had a lot of heart, and they really, really had an extremely high regard for their community. And so what was remarkable to me in understanding sort of the sequence of events that led to the establishment of Hale Mahaolu, Kahi, and all of our subsequent initiatives is that, these guys didn't spend a lot of time talking about why things couldn't happen. I mean, they sort of just did it. I mean, to the point where literally I'm working on getting the underlying zoning for our very first property as we speak. I mean, 50 years later, they just did it, and the legacy that they left for us is that, which I think we'd be remiss if we didn't share with, the younger folks who very, very shortly are going to be the folks in charge, is that, our Nisei forebears took on initiatives with a lot less resources than we have, a lot less education than we all have. And they didn't focus on the obstacles. They just figured, how are we going to do this, right? And they did it. And amazingly enough, and perhaps not amazing, perhaps typically, because of the humility that sort of characterizes that organization, that group of folks, there's no playbook. It's not written down. Look at what we did. It's nobody beat you over the head with it. But when you look back at what they did, really, the proof is in the pudding, and the community institutions that have been established because of their vision, because of their concern for one another and the community. Really, Hale Mahaolu is that. It's really part of that legacy, part of that. It's really a monument to their incredible fortitude and discipline, and the way they were to sort of share in a common cause, right? That sort of group mentality that allowed for so many initiatives, not just Hale Mahaolu, but so many initiatives in our community to occur. So
they were an amazing group of individuals, and we often talk about how when they came back, they adopted that motto of continuing service and giving back to the community. And whether it's Hale Makua or Hale Mahaolu or our center,
right.
their legacy lives on. And yes, they just went out and got things done. Very, very go for broke, just
Absolutely.
go out there and make it happen. So, right now with COVID and everything else that is going on in our community, how has Hale Mahaolu kind of addressed this pandemic, the social issues that are happening within our nation? And you've been safe. Your people there working are safe. So tell us a little bit about what you've done to address this whole pandemic.
Well, it's a bit of balancing act for us because, of course, and the balance has been, we've had to spend a lot of energy, of course, sort of making sure, we're safe, making sure we have the proper equipment to keep everyone safe, that we've basically hunkering down and trying to get through this period. But the balancing act has been that, there's also really the huge topic of the day is housing, affordable housing for seniors and families, and rental housing. And so we haven't had the luxury of being able to take our eye off the ball when it comes to that very, very important and key sort of centerpiece of our mission, but also the need in the community. And so that therein lies the balance, right? Because yeah, we have to kind of early on in this year, we had to kind of hunker down, regroup, sort of rethink how we did things. But literally, we haven't been able to take our foot off the gas pedal one single bit in terms of growing our portfolio, planning for the future, basically growing the inventory that is so needed for our community. We feel a void or niche in our community that becomes increasingly important when you realize that the lion's share of the folks that come to live with us are they're coming from somewhere, right? They're coming from another home, maybe they're coming from a situation where maybe they've lost a spouse and are in a home that really they could rent out or sell and make available to someone else. And many of our tenants have actually done that. And so we always like to make sure that we plant the seed in policymakers' minds that really the work we do has sort of a multiplier effect, if you will. Because when we are able to house someone in an appropriate setting for their life stage, and they're able to move out of a setting that was appropriate for them, maybe in an earlier stage of their lives, so that they can then make the home available to, say, other family members or a tenant, or even sell it, or what have you, we're actually creating sustainability, if you will, in terms of providing for the housing needs of our community at large. And so I sometimes, when folks will actually listen, I do like to share that we do focus on senior citizen housing, but really the impacts that we have in the community go well beyond simply providing for the say the widowed senior citizen who comes to live with us.
Right. And I think a lot of people don't know you do a lot of family housing, like you said early on. You do a lot of family housing and other programs as well. And I know you're a big advocate at the legislature, and everyone's always talking about affordable housing and how difficult it is to get it done. But look at what Hale Mahaolu has been able to do over the years, and the projects that you have in the in the pike. You are creating affordable housing. So what's the secret?
We had the every year, well, in most years when people can actually travel inter-island, the House Finance and Senate Ways and Means committees come to visit, and more years than not, we have Hale Mahaolu, at least since I started, Hale Mahaolu will have a property that is maybe newly open or under construction, or in some form or fashion in progress, so as to grow our portfolio and sort of attack that need. And legislators from around the state have asked that very question, because it may not be obvious to those of us who have made our lives here on Maui, because Hale Mahaolu, no thanks to me, I mean, I'm not taking credit for it. Hale Mahaolu has had such a incredible record of success in terms of establishing housing. And honestly, there's not a lot of other organizations in the whole state that have had this degree of productivity and really success in terms of funding and construction, and basically getting housing out into the community. So that question has been asked of us, and so you talk about the legislature, and they've invited us to kind of share sort of our thoughts as far as how to approach these issues, and best practices that have been sort of garnered over time based upon the experiences that we've had here at Hale Mahaolu. And uh, it's kind of I mean, like I alluded to, Deidre, I can't take any credit for any of this. I'm relatively new to this organization. But what I've learned and have been able to share with others around the state, I hope will create some leveraging in terms of sort of the Hale Mahaolu model, if you will, and how really um, it is a way that we can truly work to address needs in our community that go beyond the need for senior housing.
Well, and I think you can't talk about Hale Mahaolu without talking a little bit about Roy Katsuda, who had been there for so many years, a former board member of Nisei Veterans Memorial Center as well. But yeah, I mean, he did an amazing job and still very
Absolutely.
active in the community. So I'm not sure if he's on the call today, but a big shout out to Roy Katsuda.
Definitely.
So we have a couple of questions, a couple other questions coming in here. One is if you were to give advice to that next generation, and maybe it's to your own children who are on the call, and maybe you give them advice plenty. But you know, especially in this day and age, what kind of advice as to leadership and being flexible in difficult times would you give to them?
So I actually have said this to at least my son. I know I've said this to him, but I when I got out of law school and came home to Maui to practice, um, I never dreamed that I would have the jobs that I've had. I thought I was gonna come home and establish a small law practice and make a living and um, maybe do the same thing for 40 years um, and I'd be happy. And that's sort of, how I came at things when I was, 25 years old, right out of law school. And obviously that wasn't what happened to me. And what I realized is that, this is a really, not just Maui, but, the state of Hawaii is a wonderful place. There are wonderful opportunities. And I find that being open to different opportunities that arise, um, even though most of the time they're not really in your sort of comfort zone, just being open to that is just so super important. You just really, really never know what you're going to love doing. You never know what you're going to be good at or comfortable with unless you're open to it. And I think that in a way it's not the young folks' fault, but there's so much emphasis from the time they're young, very young, to pick a career and pick one where you're gonna make money, or and get on that track and don't deviate from that track, kind of a thing. And what I realized is that I guess I was sort of that mindset as well, coming right out of school. But for me, again, that whole takes a village to raise a child or whatever, I was given so many really cool opportunities from people who I kind of grew up, respecting and admiring, this job being case in point, right? I mean, folks that I really look up to had kind of thought that maybe this would be a good fit for me. And so when I would, and how did I know I was going to wind up here? I didn't. Yeah. But I was open to it, and I think that's all you can do is just um, let yourself be open to um, the different opportunities that will arise, and they will arise. They will arise, and just can't shut doors.
That's a great point. I like that. Um, if someone wrote in a question here, what what factors played in your decision to return to Maui as opposed to staying in California and working in California after law school?
So we were in California, in the Bay Area, for law school, and my then girlfriend, now wife, was with me then, and she loved it up there. She just loved it. It was a nice place to live. She had a great job. Um, but just to share, it was actually I who wanted to come back to Hawaii, and not just back to Hawaii. I wanted to come back to Maui, um, mainly because, again, you never really can plan for what happens in life. But I really thought that I wanted to run for the Constitutional Convention in 1989, because every 10 years there was a Constitutional Convention in 59, 69, 79. Well, starting in 89, it was determined that no need Constitutional Convention, and there hasn't been one since. But I thought that's what I wanted to do, and so that was really one of the drivers for my focus on returning to Maui, and finding a job here, establishing a law practice here. And I thought I wanted to maybe make a life for myself in public service. And I thought, oh, that's a good way of kind of dipping your toe in the pond. And it never happened, of course, but that's sort of the story, and how it all happened. And again, my wife was she didn't fight me on it. She's actually pretty supportive. So that's how we wound up returning, although it was great living in the Bay Area.
Constitutional Convention. So is politics possibly in your future? I mean, you were a managing director.
Yeah, I don't
What
think so.
about elected office?
Yeah, no, I don't think so. I'm happy.
That's good. Okay, so let's see. We have a question that came in here. Oh, so we have a lot of people on this call who live at Hale Mahaolu, have family at Hale Mahaolu, and someone just texted in to say how much they really appreciate everything that you and the team do at Hale Mahaolu to make sure that everybody has a voice and it really feels like a home. How are you? I mean, you have so many different properties and you have so many different personalities and people who live there. How are you able to create that really special, safe place at all of the Hale Mahaolus?
Well, I think you mentioned that our sort of tagline, "Where Aloha Lives," and for us, for me, and again, kudos to my predecessor Roy Katsuda, because really fundamentally what we mean when we talk about aloha is that we want to create and maintain a setting where people can live independently as they can for as long as they can. And so that means creating a setting that is clean and beautiful and friendly. It also means not micromanaging their lives, letting them. We have a bunch of guys who go. I see them leaving the property every day. They go surfing every day. We have ladies who like to garden. We have all kinds of different folks with all kinds of different interests, and it's about just encouraging and supporting their independence, because we know, I mean, life is such that at a certain point, a person reaches a point in life where they may not be able to live independently, and but we like to think that our efforts create a setting where that period of independence can be maintained for as long as possible. And really, that to us is aloha, right? I mean, that's putting ourselves in those shoes, looking, fast forwarding to that point in our lives, we all want to be as independent as we can for as long as we can, without without the need for assistance. And
Right.
so, yeah.
And we're always talking about the values of the Nisei values, but really they are also the values of aloha. Aloha is written into the Hawaii State Constitution. Um, so, and if we all just practice aloha and put that into our daily lives, how much better our work and our home and everything would be. But yeah, that's great, that feeling of aloha. I'm going to, let's see. Uh, so someone is wondering how, if they are interested in getting more information about Hale Mahaolu or contributing. I know we had talked before the call started about you don't do fundraising like some other nonprofits do fundraising. But if someone is interested in helping out at Hale Mahaolu, how do they go about doing that?
Well, we actually have a fairly robust website. So in terms of anyone who might have an interest in any of our programs or any of the housing sites that we have available, applications are downloadable, and there's a lot of good information there that is fairly easily digestible. Of course, all of our phone numbers at the various properties are a human being will actually pick up the phone, and can always call and inquire as to specific questions that might come up. If there's an interest in contributing to our work, of course, it's always welcome. We realize that we're not in an easy time in terms of our economy, but we've enjoyed, of course, the generosity of folks in the community over time, and we generally will try to always leverage our whatever contributions we receive to benefit the folks that live with us, or maybe the folks who participate in our meals program, or directly benefiting the beneficiaries of our work.
Okay, so check out the halemahaolu.org website, correct?
Yes.
Perfect.
Please.
We are gently getting to the end of our hour, and I can't believe it. It always surprises me. The time goes by so quickly. I'm going to just give some little closing statements, and then I'm going to come back to you, Grant, for some final remarks. But in the meantime, I want to thank everybody for joining the call this afternoon. We're excited to have you here. Upcoming events include November 7th. We will be doing our Afternoon with the Author with Mike Malahan and his book, A Question of Loyalty. That's at 1:30 on November 7th. On Tuesday, November 17th, General Bramlett will be talking about the Nisei story in World War II. He's an excellent speaker as well, and I know that you will enjoy his talk. And then on the 20th of November, we have our annual dinner, which we are going to be doing via Zoom this year. And our guest speaker is going to be Alton Chung. So a great storyteller. He will also be talking a little bit about the Nisei story. So we hope that you join all of these events. You can go to our website at nvmc.org to sign up. And all of you will be receiving a weekly Wednesday email update from us, just letting you know what's going on at the center. Actually, this Thursday, I was remiss in saying that Sharon Suzuki, the president of Maui County Electric and Hawaii Island Utilities, will be talking on the TaKe series as well. So check out our website. Please know that you will be getting an email from us. You can unsubscribe at any time, but we hope you decide to stay subscribed and stay engaged, because that means a lot to us, and you're part of our Nisei Veterans Memorial Center Ohana. With that, I turn it back to you, Grant, for some closing remarks.
Well, Deidre, thank you so much for inviting me to share this time with you. And thank you to the Nisei Veterans Memorial Center for what you all do for our community. And, I realize, and maybe I should just say it, you folks are more than a repository of archival information. I mean, and I hope our listeners and viewers come to that understanding, because what you've done is you've really leveraged the wonderful legacy of the Nisei veterans into a source of guidance and inspiration and stability that is so relevant for our community, today and into the future. So kudos to you folks for the work you're doing. I just had a closing sort of quote that I found. It might sound a little bit random, but I'll put it in context. So the quote is from Warren Buffett, which I recently shared this quote with our leadership team here at Hale Mahaolu. And the quote is, no matter how great the talent or efforts, some things just take time. You can't produce a baby in 1 month by getting pregnant. When I read this quote, I thought it was appropriate for this time that we're in, because I think intuitively, we all understand and realize that the difficulties that we're facing as a community, as a country right now, they're not permanent. We know this. We know that there will be a vaccine at some point, and we know that we're going to get through this time. However, that doesn't mean that there aren't days when we don't feel this total sense of frustration and futility, when sometimes we just ask ourselves, how long is this thing going to go on? When can we once again gather with friends and colleagues, in camaraderie? So for me, this quote, Buffett's quote, reminds us that there are things that simply require time and patience and diligence and discipline and perspective. And this is so very much aligned with the Nisei values, right? Not everything that will eventually happen will necessarily happen in the time frame that we would hope for. But of course, we all realize that the pandemic of 1918 did not last forever. And of course, neither is this thing going to last forever. We'll get through this. So I shared this with our senior managers because I feel like as leaders, it's incumbent upon us to have this perspective and, when necessary, share this perspective. Because I really feel that people need reassurance now. They need to hear that we're going to be okay, because we are. And they need to hear it. So with that, thanks again for having me.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much, Grant, for spending the hour with us. Thank you for your views on leadership, and thank you for closing it out with a really positive thought. We all need that, and we appreciate you sharing that with us. To everybody else, to all of you, thank you so much for being here. Until we meet again, stay safe, be well, and ahui ho. Aloha.